The evening air outside the theater felt cool and calm. Soft clouds covered the sky, and the last light of sunset slowly faded behind tall buildings. Inside, bright lights warmed the large stage. Rows of seats stretched far into the room, filled with people talking quietly while waiting for the next performance. Some held drinks. Some checked their phones. Others leaned back in their chairs, already tired after watching so many acts. A large screen behind the stage displayed colorful lights that moved slowly across the wall, while the stage crew quietly adjusted microphones and cables. Another performance had just ended. The applause was polite, but short. Then, the lights dimmed slightly. A voice from the speaker announced the next act. Next on stage, a dance crew. The crowd reacted with light murmurs. Many dance groups had already performed that night. Some were good, some were forgettable. People weren't sure what to expect anymore. Behind the stage curtain, 5 dancers stood close together in a small waiting area. The room back there was darker and quieter than the stage. A single white light hung from the ceiling, casting soft shadows on the floor. Their outfits were simple, black and white, no shining decorations, no dramatic costumes. Just clean lines and comfortable shoes. One dancer slowly rolled his shoulders to loosen his muscles. Another closed her eyes for a moment and took a deep breath. They had practiced this routine hundreds of times. Still, their hands felt slightly cold. The leader of the group looked at the others. No words were needed. They all understood what tonight meant. Years earlier, their journey had started in a much smaller place. It was an old dance studio hidden between small shops in a busy neighborhood. The studio had wooden floors that creaked slightly when people walked, and the mirrors on the wall were cracked in a few places. Sometimes the speakers made a buzzing sound when the music played too loudly. But for them, that place felt like home. They practiced there after school, after work, sometimes late into the night. Outside, the streets would grow quiet while they were still inside, dancing. Many people had told them dancing was not a safe dream. Some friends had stopped dancing long ago, choosing stable jobs or losing confidence. But this small group stayed together. They believed that if they practiced enough, someday, someone would notice. Still, the road was not easy. There were competitions they entered, but did not win. Auditions where they were rejected. Moments when the studio rent became difficult to pay. Once, their main speaker broke during practice. 4 weeks, they trained using a small portable speaker that barely filled the room with sound. Yet, they continued, step after step, routine after routine, until finally, they received an invitation to perform on a big talent stage. It felt unreal at first, a stage much bigger than anything they had known. A crowd larger than they had ever faced. Back in the present moment, the stage manager lifted a hand and gave a quiet signal. It's time. The curtain slowly opened. Bright stage lights spilled across the floor like sunlight. The 5 dancers walked out together, their footsteps calm but careful. From the audience, the group looked small against the huge stage. The crowd watched politely. Some people leaned forward with interest. Others crossed their arms, waiting to see if this act would be worth their attention. At the judges' table, 3 judges looked at the stage, their faces neutral. They had seen many dance crews before. The dancers moved into their starting positions. The theater lights dimmed, and a soft blue light spread across the stage floor. For a moment, the entire room became very quiet. No whispers, no phone screens glowing. Just silence. The first note of music floated through the speakers. It was slow and gentle, almost like a heartbeat. One dancer lifted an arm slowly, as if reaching toward the light above. Another stepped forward with a smooth, controlled movement. Their motions were careful and simple at first. The routine didn't explode with energy like many dance performances. Instead, it began quietly, almost thoughtfully. Some people in the audience tilted their heads, not sure what direction the performance would take. The dancers moved together with calm precision. Every step matched the rhythm of the music. Every turn connected smoothly with the next motion. Their expressions were focused, serious, almost peaceful. The soft blue light reflected on the stage floor, making their shadows stretch behind them. A woman in the audience leaned forward slightly. Something about the performance felt different. It wasn't loud. It wasn't flashy. but it felt intentional. Each dancer seemed to move with deep concentration, as if every motion carried a meaning. On stage, the group slowly shifted formation. 2 dancers moved to the back while 3 stepped forward. Their movements grew slightly stronger, still controlled, still calm. In the judges' seats, one judge raised an eyebrow. The performance was building slowly, not rushing. The music added another layer of sound. A deeper rhythm joined the soft melody, and the dancers' steps matched it perfectly. Their feet tapped the floor with quiet but sharp timing. One dancer spun across the stage, stopping exactly where another dancer's movement finished. Their coordination was precise, but the audience still watched with curiosity rather than excitement. They were waiting to see where this performance would lead, because right now, it felt like the beginning of a story, not the climax. On stage, the dancers took a brief pause. Their chests rose slowly with controlled breathing. The music softened again for a moment. In that quiet second, the leader glanced at the others. A silent signal passed between them. They had reached the point where everything would begin to change. The next part of the routine was the one they had practiced the most. The moment when the calm story would grow stronger. The moment when the audience would finally understand the heart behind their dance. The lights above the stage slowly shifted from blue to a deeper shade. The rhythm of the music began to grow stronger, and the dancers prepared to move. The rhythm of the music began to grow stronger. The soft melody from earlier slowly faded into a deeper, steady beat that filled the theater. The sound moved through the room like a rising wave. On C-stage, the 5 dancers stood perfectly still for one brief second. Then everything changed. The leader stepped forward sharply, his foot hitting the floor with confidence. At the same moment, the other dancers moved with sudden energy, their bodies flowing together like parts of a single machine. The calm beginning of the performance was gone. Now the dance carried power. Their movements became faster, stronger, and more precise. Arms cut through the air with clean lines. Feet moved in perfect rhythm with the beat. The audience noticed immediately. People who had been leaning back in their chairs slowly sat forward. The dancers shifted across the stage in quick formations. One moment they moved like a tight circle. The next, they spread out across the wide stage floor. Every move connected smoothly with the next. Nothing felt random. Each motion felt like part of a story. The music grew louder, adding sharp drum beats that echoed through the speakers. One dancer jumped forward, spinning quickly before landing perfectly beside another dancer. At that exact moment, the group dropped low to the floor in perfect sync. A small ripple of surprise moved through the audience. Some people whispered quietly. Others nodded with growing interest. The performance was no longer quiet or uncertain. It was becoming powerful. The stage lights brightened, casting strong white beams that followed the dancers as they moved. Sweat began to shine lightly on their faces under the warm lights, but their focus never broke. Years of practice lived inside every step. Back in their small studio, they had repeated these moves again and again. Late nights, early mornings, sometimes practicing the same 8 counts of music for hours. Now, all of that effort appeared in front of hundreds of watching eyes. The rhythm suddenly paused. For half a second, the music stopped. The dancers froze. The silence hit the room like a held breath. Then the beat returned with twice the energy. The group exploded into motion. Their feet struck the floor rapidly, creating a rhythm that matched the pounding drums in the music. Their bodies turned and twisted with perfect control. A woman in the front row placed her hand over her mouth in surprise. She had not expected this level of skill. Near the judges' table, one judge leaned closer to the stage. Another judge slowly smiled. The crew moved into a powerful formation. 2 dancers lifted another briefly, creating the illusion of someone floating in the air before lowering him smoothly back to the floor. The audience gasped softly, but the performance still was not finished. The dancers suddenly changed their energy again. Instead of fast movements, they slowed down. The music softened. Their motions became more emotional. One dancer stepped forward alone, while the others moved slowly behind him, their arms reaching toward him as if pulling him back. The story behind the dance began to reveal itself. It showed struggle, doubt, the feeling of trying to move forward while something invisible holds you back. The dancer at the front pushed forward again, breaking free from the reaching hands behind him. The audience watched closely now. No one whispered anymore. Phones that had been in people's hands were now lowered. The theater had become completely focused on the stage. Another dancer joined the leader, and together they moved in perfect mirror movements, showing connection and support. Then the full crew reunited. Their bodies moved together again, stronger than before. The music began rising toward its final section. The drums grew louder. The tempo increased. The dancers ran across the stage and slid into another formation. Then came the moment they had practiced the most. The final sequence. Each dancer moved with complete confidence now. No hesitation, no nervousness. Their earlier fear had disappeared. Their bodies remembered every movement. Their minds focused only on the music. Step, turn, jump, spin. Every motion landed exactly on the beat. The energy in the room kept rising. People in the audience started clapping along with the rhythm. At first, just a few. Then more. The theater slowly filled with the sound of hands clapping to the beat of the music. The dancers felt it. Even while moving, they could sense the change in the room. Earlier, the audience had doubted them. Now the crowd was supporting them. The final section of music began. It was the strongest part of the entire track. The dancers moved faster than ever, crossing the stage in powerful lines and sharp formations. Silence. For a fraction of a second, the room stayed completely still. Then the theater exploded. The crowd jumped to their feet. Applause thundered across the room like a storm. Cheers filled the air. People clapped loudly, some even shouting with excitement. The judges stood up as well, smiling widely while applauding. The dancers slowly rose from their final pose, breathing heavily. For a moment, they simply looked at the audience. The same people who had watched them quietly earlier were now standing and cheering. The crew members glanced at each other, their expressions filled with disbelief and happiness. All those nights in the small studio, all the moments when they wondered if anyone would ever notice them. All the struggles, every step had led to this moment. The leader bowed his head slightly. The other dancers followed. The applause continued. It did not stop quickly. It rolled through the theater again and again. Under the bright lights, the dancers finally allowed small smiles to appear. They had not just performed a dance. They had shared their story. A story about patience, about believing in a dream even when no one is watching. And sometimes, the biggest moments come quietly at first. Just like their performance, it started softly, but it ended with a room full of people standing. Sometimes all it takes is one moment to prove that years of effort were never wasted. And if this story touched your heart, remember to show some love, because every dream grows stronger when someone believes in it.